Imagine sitting beside your father in a hospital ICU room, surrounded by tubes and machines that are keeping him alive. Then suddenly someone storms in and tries to switch everything off, and the person doing it isn't a doctor or nurse. It's your father's HOA president. Yes, the same woman who spends her days complaining about lawn height and mailbox colors suddenly believes she has the authority to decide whether a man lives or dies. This isn't just another neighborhood argument. It's about how far one self-appointed enforcer of petty HOA rules pushed things before hospital staff, security, and police had to step in. My dad had been in the ICU for nearly a week after suffering a sudden heart attack. The situation was serious, but the doctors were cautiously hopeful. He was sedated and connected to life support, and every steady beat from the monitors reminded us that modern medicine was keeping him alive. For our family, those sounds meant hope. For someone else, apparently, they were an inconvenience. That someone was Karen, the president of our HOA. If you've ever dealt with a Karen, you know they thrive on control. She had lived across the street from us for years and always had complaints about something. Our fence, our driveway, even the way my dad parked his truck. But none of that prepared me for what she would do inside that hospital. It started on the second day of my dad's stay in the ICU, when I noticed Karen pacing outside the room. At first, I assumed she must be visiting someone else, but when she caught me looking, she gave that tight, smug smile she always wore when handing out HOA violation notices. My stomach dropped instantly. "Your dad's on life support?" she asked like it was her business. "Yes," I replied shortly. "I didn't know her anything." "Don't you think that's unnecessary?" she added in a judgmental tone, the same voice she used when complaining about holiday lights being left up too long. For a moment, I thought I must have misheard her. Who asks something like that about a man fighting for his life? I tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just Karen being Karen, but the next day she was back again, and the day after that. Every time I stepped into the hallway, she was standing nearby, pretending to wait for someone while clearly watching my dad's room. I didn't realize it then, but she was planning something. Something worse than HOA fines or angry letters. Something that would shake our whole family. By the fourth day, I knew something wasn't right. Karen wasn't just lingering anymore, she was lurking. Whenever I walked out for coffee or a quick break, she appeared again. Sometimes she pretended to scroll through her phone. Other times she tried making awkward small talk with nurses. But her eyes always drifted toward my dad's room. I tried to convince myself that stress was making me paranoid. Maybe she actually did know someone in the ICU. Then one afternoon, a nurse quietly pulled me aside. "Do you know that woman out there?" she asked. I sighed. "Yeah, she's the president of our HOA. Why?" The nurse frowned. "She keeps asking questions about your father. How long will he be on life support? Whether the family approved it. It feels strange." Strange was an understatement. My dad's medical condition had nothing to do with her, yet she acted like she had a right to be involved. When I confronted her later that evening, she didn't deny anything. She folded her arms, lifted her chin, and said calmly, "Someone needs to make sure resources aren't being wasted. Those machines are expensive, and if he isn't going to recover, the responsible thing would be to let him go." I was stunned. My dad was fighting for his life, and this woman, who wasn't family, wasn't a doctor, and wasn't even a friend, was acting like she had a vote in the matter. "Stay away from him," I snapped. "You have no authority here. But if you know anything about Karens, you know the word no only fuels them." Over the next 2 days, her behavior escalated. She followed doctors during their rounds, trying to overhear updates. She tried slipping into restricted areas while claiming she was family. Security escorted her out twice, yet she kept coming back. The breaking point came on the 7th day. I had stepped into the hallway to call my mom when alarms suddenly started blaring from my dad's room. I ran back and saw Karen standing beside the ventilator with both hands grabbing the cords, trying to pull them loose. "He wouldn't want this," she screamed down the hallway. "He's a burden to the community." Within seconds, nurses rushed in and pulled her away while security stormed through the door. My heart pounded as I pushed past them to reach my dad, terrified her insanity had just killed him. Thankfully, the machines were still running, and my dad was alive. He was still breathing, but the chaos was far from finished. Karen wasn't done yet, and the hospital was about to turn into a battlefield of shouting, flashing radios, security officers, and restraints. The scene inside the ICU was complete mayhem. Nurses rushed in every direction, alarms screamed through the halls, and my dad's heart monitor began beeping faster than my own pulse could handle. Karen flailed wildly in the middle of the room, her voice sharp, furious, and completely unhinged. "You're wasting everyone's money," she screamed, kicking a rolling tray that crashed loudly across the floor. "He should have been gone days ago. I'm the HOA president. I get a say in this." Security guards moved toward her cautiously, but Karen fought as if someone possessed her. She scratched at them, screamed insults, and even tried to bite one of the guards when he grabbed her arm. One of the nurses quickly pulled me back into the hallway, worried that I might get hurt in the chaos. But I couldn't look away. This wasn't some petty neighborhood complaint about trash cans or parking rules anymore. This had become something much darker. Within moments, 2 hospital security officers managed to pin her arms against her sides. But Karen twisted violently, bucking and thrashing while shouting curses at everyone in sight. "I'll sue this hospital," she yelled. "You can't keep me away." He signed community agreements. Community agreements. The words made absolutely no sense, but the fury blazing in her eyes was real enough to make my skin crawl. Then the police arrived. 2 officers hurried down the hallway, their radios crackling while their hands rested near their belts. Relief flooded through me as they stepped inside the ICU room. "Step back. Everyone step back now," one officer ordered firmly. Karen suddenly froze for a brief second before trying an entirely different strategy. "Fake tears. You don't understand," she cried dramatically. "I'm trying to do what's best for everyone. That man is wasting resources. He doesn't deserve." "Ma'am, stop talking and comply," the officer interrupted. His voice remained calm but carried the firm authority of someone who wasn't interested in debating nonsense. When Karen refused to cooperate, the officers reacted instantly. In one quick movement, they grabbed her arms, turned her around, and snapped the cuffs onto her wrists. The sharp click of metal closing echoed in the room like a final verdict. Karen shrieked even louder, her voice ringing through the sterile hospital corridors. "You can't arrest me. I'm the one in charge here. I'm in charge." But she wasn't. For the first time since this entire nightmare had begun, someone had finally stopped her madness. As the officers dragged her out of the ICU area, patients peeked nervously from their rooms while whispering to one another. Nurses exchanged tired looks of relief as the situation finally began to calm down. I stepped back into my father's room, my hand shaking as I checked the machines connected to him. Everything was still working. The monitors were steady. My dad was still alive, for now at least. But the damage had already been done. Our family's privacy had been shattered, and our confidence in the hospital's security had been shaken. Karen's obsession had been exposed for everyone to witness. Still, part of me knew that people like her rarely give up easily, and sure enough, even while wearing handcuffs, Karen had one last move to attempt. As the officers escorted her down the ICU hallway, she refused to stay quiet. Her voice screeched like a siren, echoing loudly against the polished walls. "You'll regret this," she screamed. "He doesn't belong here. I'll take this all the way to court." The police officers didn't react. They calmly walked her straight through the hospital lobby past shocked families and stunned visitors until the automatic doors finally swallowed her screams into the night outside. Only then did the ICU seem to breathe again. The alarms quieted. The nurses regrouped. And my dad's room returned to its steady rhythm of quiet beeping machines. But the anger inside me refused to fade. This wasn't simply a neighbor crossing a line. She had crossed into something far more serious. Something criminal. A few minutes later, the officers returned to take statements from the staff and me. One of them, a tall man with tired eyes and a weary expression, slowly shook his head. "I've seen some strange things in this job," he said. "But I've never seen someone try to mess with life support because of HOA rules." It sounded ridiculous when spoken aloud, but it had almost cost my father his life. If security hadn't responded quickly enough, the outcome could have been tragic. That same night, we decided to press charges. The hospital did as well. Trespassing, disorderly conduct, attempted interference with medical equipment. The charges piled up quickly. Karen was taken to jail and spent the entire night behind bars. By the following morning, she was officially banned from entering the hospital property ever again. But the story didn't end there. News about the incident spread through the neighborhood faster than anyone expected. People who once tolerated Karen's endless HOA complaints finally saw her true colors. Some neighbors were horrified by what she had done. Others seemed quietly relieved that she was finally facing consequences. At the next HOA meeting, yes, She actually tried organizing one from her lawyer's office, and half the board members resigned immediately. Residents began signing petitions demanding her permanent removal. Within just a few weeks, Karen lost everything she once controlled. She was stripped of her HOA position and left dealing with court hearings, legal fees, and the consequences of her actions. For my family, the experience left deep emotional scars. We couldn't forget the moment she lunged toward those machines, screaming about community resources as if my father's life were nothing more than a decorative lawn ornament. Still, there was one bright side to everything that happened. Neighbors we barely knew began showing their support. Meals appeared on our doorstep. Cards and kind messages filled our mailbox. For the first time, people stopped treating the HOA like some untouchable authority and began questioning how much power one person should really have. And my dad? After weeks in the ICU, he survived. Slowly but surely, he regained his strength. When he finally returned home, he sat in his favorite chair on the porch and looked across the street at Karen's now empty house. Then, he shook his head quietly. "All that trouble," he said softly, "just because I parked my truck the wrong way." Sometimes the people who want power the most are the very ones least deserving of it. And sometimes justice doesn't only come from courts or police. Sometimes it comes from a community finally standing up together and saying one simple word: enough. If you enjoyed this unbelievable story, make sure to hit the like button. Leave a comment below telling us what you think about this outrageous HOA, Karen. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you never miss the next crazy story. Also, tap the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when a brand new episode goes live.